One Night in Victor's World. A story of power, betrayal, and dangerous desire. The elevator climbed in silence, each floor marked by a soft chime that echoed against polished steel walls. 40 floors. 41. 42. Odessa watched the numbers glow and fade, her reflection staring back at her from the mirrored walls. A woman in a red dress with eyes that had forgotten how to hope. 43. 44. Her heart should have been racing. Any sane person walking into Summit Tower would feel their pulse quicken, their palms sweat, their survival instincts screaming to turn back. But Odessa had learned something in the past 6 months. When you've already lost everything that matters, fear becomes just another useless emotion. 45. The doors slid open with a whisper, revealing a world that existed beyond the reach of laws and morality. Summit Tower's 45th floor wasn't on any building directory. It didn't appear on blueprints or fire escape routes. To most of the city below, it simply didn't exist. But it did. And in this world, power wore $1,000 suits and made decisions that toppled governments over glasses of scotch older than most countries. Odessa stepped out, her heels clicking against marble floors so polished they looked like black glass. The space before her was vast and dimly lit, all dark wood and leather, the kind of calculated luxury that whispered rather than shouted. Crystal chandeliers hung from vaulted ceilings, their light deliberately muted, creating pools of shadow that seemed to hold secrets. Men in tailored suits dotted the room, their conversations low and purposeful. She could feel their eyes on her as she moved through the space, some appreciative, others calculating, all dangerous. In places like this, everyone was either predator or prey. There was no middle ground. She'd worn the red dress deliberately. In a room full of shadows and dark suits, she wanted to be seen, wanted to be remembered, wanted them to underestimate her while they stared. A man in a black suit materialized at her elbow, his face professionally blank. "Miss Chen, Mr. Salvatore is expecting you." Of course he was. Victor Salvatore knew everything that happened in his world before it happened. That was how men like him stayed alive in a business where most didn't see their 40th birthday. She followed the escort through the club, past private rooms with doors that hid the kind of deals that shaped the world, past a poker table where she recognized a federal judge, past a bar where a tech billionaire laughed too loudly at something a senator whispered in his ear. They stopped at a door at the far end of the floor. Heavy, solid, the kind that could withstand anything short of military-grade explosives. The escort knocked twice, paused, knocked once more. A code. A ritual. Enter. The voice that came from within was smooth, controlled, dangerous. Like velvet wrapped around steel. The door opened, and Odessa stepped into Victor Salvatore's world. The penthouse beyond the door made the exclusive club look modest. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a view of the city that seemed to stretch into infinity, millions of lights twinkling like fallen stars. The space was all clean lines and dark colors, furniture that cost more than most people earned in a decade, art on the walls that belonged in museums. But Odessa's attention went immediately to the man standing by the windows, his back to her, hands clasped behind him as he surveyed his kingdom below. Victor Salvatore. Even in silhouette, he commanded attention. 6'2", maybe 6'3", broad shoulders filling out a suit that had been tailored by hands that understood the human form as art. His hair was dark, touched with gray at the temples, not the gray of age, but of the weight of years spent making impossible decisions. "Miss Chen." He didn't turn around. "You're either very brave or very foolish to request an audience with me." "I prefer to think I'm practical, Mr. Salvatore." Odessa moved further into the room, her voice steady despite the adrenaline beginning to course through her veins. "I have something you need. You have something I want. That's not bravery or foolishness. That's business." A low chuckle devoid of humor. "Business." He turned then, and Odessa got her first clear look at the man whose reputation had made him a myth in certain circles. He was younger than she'd expected, mid-40s perhaps, with the kind of face that could have been handsome if it weren't so cold. Sharp cheekbones, strong jaw, eyes the color of slate that seemed to look through people rather than at them. There was a scar, thin and pale, running from his left eyebrow to his hairline. A reminder that even gods could bleed. Those slate eyes assessed her with the precision of a jeweler examining a diamond for flaws. She stood still, letting him look. Let him see the red dress, the designer heels, the carefully applied makeup that made her look like she belonged in rooms like this. Let him see the surface. Men like Victor Salvatore were used to reading people. But Odessa had learned to be a book written in a language most couldn't decipher. "You're not what I expected," Victor said finally, moving away from the windows. He walked with the controlled grace of a predator, each step deliberate. "When you requested this meeting, I had my people look into you. Odessa Chen, 28 years old, MBA from Columbia, former investment analyst at Henderson and Cross. Spotless record. No criminal history. No connections to any organization that would bring you into my orbit." He stopped a few feet away from her, close enough that she could smell his cologne, something expensive and subtle. "So tell me, Ms. Chen, what is a woman like you doing in a world like mine?" "The same thing everyone who comes to you is doing, Mr. Salvatore." Odessa met his gaze without flinching. Trying to survive. Something flickered in those cold eyes. Interest, perhaps. Or recognition. Survival. He said the word like he was tasting it. "Everyone who walks into my world claims they have something I want. Most of them are lying. The ones who aren't usually don't last 24 hours. What makes you different?" This was it. The moment everything hinged on. Odessa reached into her clutch slowly, aware that somewhere in this room, unseen eyes were watching, weapons trained on her. She pulled out a flash drive, small and black, and held it up. "Because I'm not offering you money or loyalty or the usual currencies people trade in your world, Mr. Salvatore. I'm offering you something far more valuable." She paused, letting the weight of her next word settle in the space between them. "The name of the traitor in your organization." The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Victor's expression didn't change. Years of controlling kingdoms had taught him how to wear a mask, but Odessa saw the shift in his posture, the slight tensing of his jaw. "You're claiming there's a mole in my operation." "I'm not claiming anything. I'm stating a fact." Odessa kept her voice level, professional. "Someone in your inner circle has been feeding information to the Kozlov Bratva for the past 6 months. Shipping routes, transfer schedules, names of your associates. That's why you've lost 3 shipments in the last quarter. Why 2 of your safe houses were raided. Why Mikhail Kozlov always seems to be one step ahead of you." The silence that followed was absolute. Victor stared at her with an intensity that would have made most people crumble. Confess to lies, beg for mercy. But Odessa had been forged in fires hot enough to burn away weakness. "You have proof of this accusation? Every communication, every transaction, every piece of intelligence that's been leaked. It's all on this drive." She held it steady, a small piece of plastic that could topple empires. "Dates, times, methods of contact. Everything you need to identify your traitor, and plug the leak before it sinks you." Victor moved closer, close enough now that Odessa could see the gold flecks in his gray eyes, the way a muscle ticked in his jaw. "And what exactly do you want in exchange for this information? Money? Protection? A position in my organization?" "No." The word came out sharp, certain. "I want something that's worth more than any of that to me. I want you to help me get my brother back." For the first time since she'd entered the room, Victor's mask cracked. Just for a second, surprise flickered across his features. "Your brother?" "His name is Danny Chen. He's 23 years old. A graduate student at NYU. Clean record, no debts, no connections to any criminal organization. And 3 weeks ago, he was taken from his apartment by men working for the Serpent Syndicate." Her voice remained steady, but pain bled through the cracks. "They're holding him to force my compliance. They want information about Henderson and Cross's clients. Names, accounts, transactions. Information I don't have access to anymore. But they don't believe me." "The Serpent Syndicate." Victor's expression hardened. "Rashid Kim's operation. You know him. Everyone in this world knows Rashid Kim. He's a cancer. The kind of player who gives organized crime a bad name." Victor studied her face, searching for something. "You're asking me to start a war over a civilian. Over your brother. Do you understand what that would cost me? I understand that the information on this drive could save your entire operation. I understand that without it, you're fighting a war on 2 fronts. One against Kozlov that you're slowly losing, and another against enemies you don't even know you have." Odessa took a step closer, breaking the professional distance between them. I'm not asking for your charity, Mr. Salvatore. I'm offering you a trade. Fair value for fair value. Victor reached out, and for a moment Odessa thought he was going to take the flash drive. Instead, his fingers closed around her wrist, gentle but firm. Let me tell you something about my world, Miss Chen. Nothing is ever fair value. Every deal comes with hidden costs. Every alliance eventually crumbles. Every person who enters this life either becomes something they hate or dies regretting they ever stepped through the door. His thumb pressed against her pulse point, and Odessa knew he could feel her heart rate, elevated but controlled. Not the panicked flutter of fear, but the steady rhythm of determination. I'm already something I hate, she said quietly. I've already lived through regrets that would break most people. So spare me the warnings about darkness and monsters, Mr. Salvatore. I'm here because I have no other choice. My brother is the only family I have left. He's innocent. He doesn't deserve to die because I couldn't protect him. Something shifted in Victor's expression. Not softening exactly, but recognition. Like he saw something in her that reminded him of someone else. Or perhaps of himself once upon a time, before the world had taught him that mercy was weakness. He released her wrist and stepped back. I'll consider your offer. But I want to verify this information first. If you're lying to me, Ms. Chen, if this is some elaborate trap or setup, then I promise you, whatever the Serpent Syndicate will do to your brother will seem merciful compared to what I'll do to both of you. I'm not lying. Odessa extended the flash drive again. Verify everything. Take all the time you need. But every day you wait is another day Danny spends in that hell. Another day he's tortured for information he doesn't have. Another day closer to them deciding he's more valuable as a message than a hostage. Victor took the drive this time, his fingers brushing against hers. The contact was brief, electric. Wait here. There's scotch on the bar. Help yourself. He moved to a desk in the corner of the room, opening a laptop and inserting the drive. Odessa watched as he worked, his face illuminated by the screen's glow. She could see the moment he found the files, the way his eyes narrowed as he scrolled through page after page of evidence. Minutes passed in silence. Odessa didn't go to the bar. She stood in the center of the room, her hands clasped in front of her, waiting, wondering if she just made the best decision of her life or signed both her and Danny's death warrants. Finally, Victor closed the laptop. When he looked at her again, his expression was unreadable. This is authentic. The level of detail, the specificity. This came from inside my organization. His voice was cold with controlled fury. How did you get this? Does it matter? It matters very much. If you have a source inside my operation, I need to know who it is. I don't have a source. I have skills. Odessa met his stare. Before I was an analyst at Henderson and Cross, I was something else. I had a different life, different talents. Let's just say that finding hidden information is something I'm very good at. Victor stood, moving around the desk toward her. You're either a very talented hacker, a very skilled intelligence operative, or you're working for someone who is. Which is it? I'm someone who learned that when the system fails you, you have to build your own tools to survive. That's all you need to know. They stood facing each other, the air between them charged with tension. Victor studied her for a long moment, and Odessa could see him calculating, weighing options, considering angles she couldn't even guess at. I'll help you, he said finally. But not because of your information. Not because I believe in fair trades, or because I'm moved by your story about your brother. Then why? A cold smile touched his lips. Because you intrigue me, Odessa Chen. Because in 20 years of running this organization, I've met thousands of people who wanted something from me. And you're the first one who walked in here looking like you'd already accepted that getting what you want might destroy you. He paused. That kind of resignation is either incredibly brave or incredibly suicidal. I want to find out which. Odessa felt something cold settle in her stomach. So we have a deal? We have the beginning of a deal. But there are conditions. Victor walked to the bar, poured 2 glasses of scotch, and brought one to her. First, you work for me until this is resolved. You'll provide all your intelligence resources, all your skills, to help me root out this mole and shut down the leak to Kozlov. Second, you'll follow my rules, my timeline, my methods. No freelancing, no going behind my back, no trying to play me. Third. He held up his glass. You accept that once you step into this world, there's no clean exit. You'll be marked, changed, and nothing you do afterward will ever wash that stain away. Odessa took the glass, the crystal cold and heavy in her hand. And in exchange? In exchange, I'll mobilize my resources to locate your brother. When we find him, we'll extract him. After that, assuming we both survive, you and your brother disappear. New identities, new lives far away from New York. I'll provide the means. You provide the commitment to actually use them. How long? How long what? How long to find Danny? To get him out? Victor's expression was grave. The Serpent Syndicate is careful. They move their hostages frequently, use multiple safe houses, employ counter-surveillance. If your brother is still alive, if they haven't already. He stopped, seeing the pain flash across her face. I won't lie to you with false hope. Could take days. Could take weeks. But I promise you this. If he can be found, I'll find him. If he can be saved, I'll save him. It wasn't the guarantee Odessa wanted. But it was more than she'd had walking into this room. She raised her glass. Then we have a deal. Victor clinked his glass against hers. To dangerous alliances. To survival, Odessa countered. They drank and Odessa felt the scotch burn down her throat, warming something that had been cold for months. When she lowered her glass, she found Victor watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. You should know, he said quietly, that the information you brought me, if it's accurate and I believe it is, then the traitor is someone close to me. Someone I trust. Discovering their identity will likely hurt more than the betrayal itself. Better to know the truth than to live in a comfortable lie. Is it? Victor's smile was bitter. I've found that most people prefer the lie. The truth has a habit of destroying the things we've built our lives around. Then maybe those things needed to be destroyed. He stared at her for a long moment, something shifting in his eyes. You really believe that? That destruction can be necessary? Justified. Odessa thought of her parents, of the accident that wasn't an accident, of the evidence she'd found in the doors that had been slammed in her face when she tried to seek justice through legitimate channels. She thought of Danny, innocent and kind, suffering because of choices she'd made, systems she'd trusted. I believe that sometimes the only way to heal is to burn away the infection, even if the burning hurts more than the disease. Victor nodded slowly, as if she'd confirmed something he'd suspected. Then we understand each other. He finished his scotch and set the glass down. I'll start the investigation into the mole tonight. I want you to stay here at Summit Tower. I have private apartments on the 44th floor. You'll be safer here than anywhere else while we work this out. I need to go home, get some things. No. The word was firm, leaving no room for argument. From this moment forward, you're under my protection. That means following my security protocols. Anything you need, I'll have brought here. But you don't leave this building without my explicit permission and a security detail. Understood? It should have felt like a cage. Like she was trading one prison for another. But looking into Victor's eyes, seeing the cold logic that had kept him alive in a world where most died young, Odessa understood. This wasn't about control. It was about survival. Understood. Good. Victor moved toward the door, then paused. One more thing, Miss Chen. You said you've already lost everything that matters except your brother. I need you to understand something. In my world, that makes you dangerous. People with nothing left to lose are the most dangerous players at the table. They make choices that rational people wouldn't consider. They take risks that should terrify them. Is that a warning or a compliment? It's an observation. And a reminder. He looked back at her, and for just a moment, she saw something human in those cold eyes. Something that might have been respect. Or recognition. Don't forget that having nothing to lose also means having nothing to anchor you. Nothing to keep you from becoming something you can never come back from. Remember that when the time comes to make impossible choices. Then he was gone, the door closing behind him with a soft click that sounded like a cell door locking. Odessa stood alone in the vast penthouse, city lights twinkling beyond the windows, and wondered if she just saved her brother's life or damned them both to something worse than death. She walked to the windows, pressing her palm against the cold glass. Somewhere out there, in this city of millions, Danny was suffering. Scared. Probably convinced she'd abandoned him. The thought made her chest tighten with a pain that was almost physical. "I'm coming for you," she whispered to her reflection. "I promise, Danny. I'm going to bring you home. Even if it means burning the whole world down to do it. Even if it means becoming something I can never come back from." The city lights blurred as tears finally came, silent and bitter. Odessa let them fall, allowed herself this one moment of weakness. Because she knew that starting tomorrow, weakness would be a luxury she couldn't afford. She'd made a deal with the devil. Now she had to see it through to the end, whatever that end might be. 3 days passed in a strange sort of limbo. Odessa was given a suite on the 44th floor that was larger than her entire apartment. All modern luxury and impersonal elegance. The kind of space designed for temporary residents who required comfort without attachment. She wasn't allowed to leave. That was made clear immediately. 2 guards stood outside her door at all times, polite but immovable. A woman named Elena, crisp and professional in designer suits, appeared to handle her needs. Clothing in her exact size, toiletries, anything she requested. No questions asked about how they'd acquired her sizes, her preferences, her information. In Victor's world, knowledge was currency, and he clearly had plenty to spend. Victor himself was absent. Working, Elena explained in a tone that suggested explanations weren't usually given but was making an exception. Investigating the mole. Following leads. Building a plan to extract her brother. The words should have been comforting, but the silence felt like abandonment. On the 4th day, everything changed. Odessa was reading a book Elena had brought her about corporate espionage that felt darkly ironic, when her door opened without a knock. She looked up to find Victor standing in the doorway, his suit jacket gone, shirt sleeves rolled to his elbows, looking like a man who'd been working for 20 hours straight. "Come with me," he said without preamble. She didn't ask questions. Just set down the book and followed him out of her suite, down the hall to a private elevator she hadn't known existed. Victor pressed his thumb to a scanner, and the doors opened onto a space that made even his penthouse seem modest. The elevator descended, but according to the display, they weren't going down to the main floors. They were going deeper, to levels that didn't officially exist on any building plans. When the doors opened, Odessa stepped into what could only be described as a command center. The room was vast, filled with screens displaying surveillance feeds, data streams, maps with locations marked in red. A dozen people worked at computer stations, speaking in low voices into headsets, typing with focused intensity. This was the nerve center of Victor's empire. The place where information flowed, where decisions were made, where power was consolidated and distributed. "What is this?" Odessa asked, though she already knew. "This is where I actually work. The penthouse is for show. This," Victor gestured to the room, "this is where the real business happens." He led her past the workstations to a glass-walled conference room at the far end. Inside, a table was covered with photographs, documents, and surveillance images. On one wall, a single photograph was pinned. A man in his 40s, handsome in a corporate way, with salt and pepper hair and an easy smile. Beside it, documents marked with red ink, transaction records, communication logs. "Damien Cruz," Victor said, his voice cold and controlled. "My second in command. The man I've trusted for 12 years. The man who stood with me when I was building this organization from nothing." He paused, staring at the photograph with an expression that mixed fury with something that looked like grief. "And the traitor who's been selling me out to the Kozlov Bratva." Odessa moved closer to the wall, studying the evidence. It was comprehensive, damning, undeniable. "You're certain?" "Your information gave me the pattern. My people traced it back to the source. Every leak, every compromised operation, it all connects to Damien. He's been playing both sides, feeding information to Kozlov while maintaining his position here. Classic double agent." Victor's hand clenched into a fist. "I trusted him. With everything. And he stopped, jaw tight, fighting for control." Odessa had seen enough of Victor in the past few days to know that control was everything to him. Showing emotion, showing weakness was anathema. But right now, standing in front of evidence of this betrayal, his control was fracturing. "What are you going to do?" she asked quietly. What I always do. What has to be done? Victor turned away from the wall, and when he looked at her, his eyes were cold again. But that's not why I brought you here. We found your brother. Everything else, the mole, the betrayal, the command center, faded to white noise. What? Where? Is he? He's alive. Injured, according to our intelligence, but alive. The Serpent Syndicate is holding him in a warehouse in Red Hook. They're planning to move him tomorrow night. If we're going to extract him, it has to be tonight. Relief hit Odessa so hard she actually swayed. Victor's hand shot out, steadying her elbow. Easy. Sit down. She sank into a chair, hands shaking. Tonight. You can get him tonight. I can try. But you need to understand something, Odessa. Victor crouched down in front of her, forcing eye contact. This operation is dangerous. The syndicate has the warehouse heavily guarded. We'll be going in with a tactical team, but there will be casualties. On their side, possibly on ours. And once we do this, once we hit Rashid Kim's operation directly, there's no going back. He'll come after me. After my people. This isn't just a rescue mission. It's a declaration of war. Then why? Because I made you a promise. And because I don't let anyone hold civilians hostage in my city. Kim has been pushing boundaries for months, and this. Victor's expression hardened. This crosses a line. Even in this world, some things are sacred. Family is one of them. Odessa felt something crack in her chest. Some wall she built to survive the past months. Thank you, she whispered. I know what you're risking, what this could cost you. Don't thank me yet. We haven't succeeded. Victor stood, pulling her to her feet with him. And there's something else you need to know. I want you on the extraction team. What? Why would you? Because your brother will be traumatized, probably doesn't know if rescue is coming or if he's going to die. When we breach that warehouse, when armed men burst into wherever they're holding him, he needs to see a familiar face immediately. He needs to know he's safe. That means you need to be there. It made sense, but it also meant, you're asking me to go into a firefight. I'm asking you to be there when your brother needs you most. My people will protect you. But yes, there's risk. If you're not comfortable with that, if you'd rather wait here until we bring him to you, I understand. Odessa thought about Danny, alone and scared, probably convinced he'd been abandoned. Thought about him seeing armed men coming for him, not knowing if they were there to save or kill him. Thought about the promise she'd whispered to her reflection days ago. I'll go, she said. Whatever it takes. Victor nodded, a ghost of approval crossing his features. Then we move in 4 hours. Elena will get you appropriate clothing and gear. Listen to my tactical team leader, do exactly what they tell you and stay behind cover. Understood. Understood. He started to turn away, then paused. Odessa? When this is over, when your brother is safe, you need to take the exit I'm offering. You and Danny need to disappear. Because after tonight, after we hit Kim's operation, things are going to get very dark very fast. What about you? What about the mole? I'll handle Damien. I'll handle Kozlov. I'll handle all of it. Victor's smile was cold and predatory. That's what I do. But you still have a chance to walk away from this world. Don't waste it trying to repay debts or seeking revenge, or whatever other justification your mind is creating. Just walk away. You said there's no clean exit from this world. There's not. But there are degrees of stained. Right now you're barely touched. A few more weeks, a few more operations, and you'll be just as marked as the rest of us. He held her gaze. I'm giving you a chance to avoid that. Take it. Before Odessa could respond, he was gone, disappearing back into the command center to oversee preparations. She stood alone in the glass-walled room, surrounded by evidence of betrayal, staring at the photograph of Damien Cruz and wondering what it took to betray someone who trusted you. Wondering if, in her quest to save Danny, she was betraying herself. For hours later, dressed in dark tactical gear that fit her like a second skin, Odessa sat in the back of an unmarked van racing through the Brooklyn streets. Around her, Victor's team prepared, checking weapons, reviewing maps, communicating in shorthand developed through years of operations together. Victor sat across from her, now wearing the same tactical black as everyone else, a weapon holstered at his hip, an earpiece feeding him constant updates from surveillance teams already in position around the warehouse. "We go in fast and quiet," he said, his voice calm despite the violence they were heading toward. "Surveillance shows 8 guards visible, probably another 4 inside. We neutralize threats, locate your brother, extract. You stay with me at all times. When we find Danny, you identify yourself immediately." "Understood." Odessa nodded, her mouth too dry to speak. The van pulled to a stop 2 blocks from the target location. Victor's team moved with practiced efficiency, splitting into 3 groups. Victor kept Odessa with his group, himself, 2 other operatives, and a man he introduced simply as Mikhail, my best. They approached the warehouse through shadows, using abandoned buildings and blind spots in the security camera coverage. Odessa's heart hammered against her ribs, adrenaline making everything sharp and clear and terrifying. She'd seen violence on screens, read about it in books. But this was different. This was real. These were real weapons, real danger, real consequences. Breaching in 30 seconds, Victor's voice came through her earpiece. "All teams, mark." Odessa pressed herself against the wall beside a loading dock door, Victor's body between her and any potential line of fire. She could see his team members at other entry points, could hear the quiet countdown in her ear. 3, 2, 1. Breach. The world exploded into motion. Doors burst open simultaneously. Flashbangs detonated with concussive force that Odessa felt in her bones. Shouting, orders barked in English and Russian, screams of surprise and pain. The sharp crack of gunfire. Victor moved like water, fluid and unstoppable, his team flowing with him. Odessa followed, staying low, staying close, her breath coming in short gasps as they cleared room after room. The warehouse was a maze of corridors and storage areas. Every shadow could hide a threat. Every corner could be an ambush. But Victor's team was better trained, better equipped, better prepared. Within minutes, the firefight was over. 8 guards down, none of Victor's team seriously injured. But they hadn't found Danny yet. "Basement," Mikhail reported, studying a building schematic on a tablet. "There's a sublevel not on the official plans. They found the stairs behind a false wall. Descended into darkness that reeked of mold and something else, something chemical and medicinal that made Odessa's stomach turn. At the bottom, a corridor with 3 doors. Victor's team cleared the first 2, empty storage, old furniture. The third was locked, heavy steel that required breaching charges. "Stand back," Victor ordered, positioning Odessa behind a concrete support column. The explosion was deafening in the enclosed space. The door burst inward and Victor's team flooded through, weapons raised. "Clear." 1 occupant, civilian. Odessa didn't wait for the all clear. She pushed past Victor, stumbling into the room beyond, her eyes adjusting to the harsh fluorescent lights. And there, chained to a chair in the center of the room, was Danny. "Oh God, Danny." He looked up and Odessa's heart shattered. He was barely recognizable. Bruises covered his face, one eye swollen shut. His clothes were torn and blood-stained. But it was his eyes, the fear and pain and resignation in them, that destroyed her. "Odessa." His voice was hoarse, confused. Are you real?" She ran to him, dropping to her knees, her hands hovering over him, afraid to touch, afraid of hurting him further. "I'm real. I'm here. I'm getting you out. They said you abandoned me. Said you'd sold me out to save yourself. Never. Danny, I would never." Tears streamed down her face as Mikhail worked on the chains, bolt cutters making quick work of the locks. "I've been looking for you. I found help. We're going to get you out of here." The chains fell away, and Danny collapsed forward. Odessa caught him, his weight suddenly in her arms, and she realized how much weight he'd lost. How much they'd broken him. "Can you walk?" Victor appeared beside them, his voice gentle in a way Odessa hadn't heard before. "Danny, my name is Victor. I'm a friend of your sister's. We need to move. Can you stand?" Danny looked at Victor with drugged, confused eyes. "The guns. I heard guns. That was us. Cleaning house. But we need to go now, before reinforcements arrive." Victor looked at Mikhail. "Can he walk?" "I'll carry him if I have to." But Danny, showing the stubborn strength that had always been his defining trait, pushed himself to his feet with Odessa's support. "I can walk. Just Just give me a second. They made it back through the warehouse, out into the night air. The vans were waiting, engines running. Odessa helped Danny into the back, climbing in beside him, pulling him close as he shook with delayed shock. Victor climbed in last, slamming the door. Go. Fast as you can without drawing attention. As the van pulled away, Odessa,